After agreeing to the little bet, all 9 of them rented out a booth and headed over to the area. The people who walked by simply ignored what was going on. There were too many people in one section. It blocked outsiders from being able to see anything that was going on. Although they did find it strange that so many people were in one booth, it still wasn't interesting enough for them to actively try and find out what was happening. Now, all that was left was to decide who from which team would go first. "Please let me do it," Sam volunteered himself. "I know you guys just met me and don't know, but those guys rubbed me the wrong way. Think of it as a freebie. You can observe in the meantime, and when I get stuck on a level, it should make things easier for you guys." Since Sam was insistent and sincere, the others found it hard to refuse his offer. In addition, Quinn liked the look of determination in his eyes. "Sure, go ahead," Quinn responded. They were confident that they wouldn't lose, especially against some of the other students, but against people like these that had never tried to get through life with their hard work, then no, they wouldn't allow themselves to lose to people like this. Sam, on the other hand, volunteered because he was worried that the others might humiliate themselves. He could tell by the stripes on their shoulders that they were only first years. It was most likely that they had never played a game like this before. The game was more difficult than it looked. One would have to be able to keep their concentration at their best while also multitasking. If he could beat everyone from the opponent's side, then there would be no need for anyone else to step in. "Zippy will go first," Zach said. The student approached the metal pole while the rest of the players stepped back a few meters away from the room, just outside the game zone. Zippy was a level 4 ability user. He was the lowest on the other team. 3, 2, 1, level 1 start. The game had started. The top 2 sections of the metal pole started twisting. At first, the machine was incredibly slow, and Zippy was able to block 2 attacks. This continued for a little while. Quinn noticed that only 2 parts of the machine were moving. This was due to the machine only being set at level 1. What Quinn also realized was the other part of the machine would only move once the person placed their hand or leg down. After blocking the attack, if one were to keep their arms up, then the machine wouldn't start until it was able to sense that the arm had gone back down again. 45 seconds had passed. All of a sudden, the machine started speeding up for the last 15 seconds. Zippy's expression changed as a little bit of sweat started running down his face. Beep! 1 minute had passed and the sound of the buzzer had gone off. This indicated he had passed. Zippy let out a big sigh while he wiped the sweat from his forehead. He walked back to his teammates. "Good job, Zippy. If you couldn't even pass level 1, then I was going to ask why you were still hanging around us," Zach said. Zippy held his head down when he walked past the other. He had no response to give. Next was Quinn's team. "Whoa, go on, Pam," Feck shouted while clapping his hands. "It's Sam," Vorden corrected him, slapping his head, and slightly embarrassed as to why he was even with such an idiot. Even though the game had started, Sam didn't look nervous at all. Instead, he was calmly breathing and keeping it steady while blocking all of the attacks. "He's quite good, at least he's been taught well," Vorden commented. Quinn thought the same. Once he concentrated and closed his eyes, he was able to focus on his hearing. When he listened to Sam's heartbeat, he could tell it was stable, unlike the contestant from before. Even during the last 15 seconds, Sam stayed the same. When Sam walked back to the others, they each gave him a high five and congratulated him on a good job. "Pfft, look at them, celebrating when they only passed level 1. They're acting as if they've already won," Zach said in an annoyed tone. It was Zippy's turn once again. This time he was on level 2. On this level, 3 of the different sections started moving. This caused the player to also move up and down, blocking the attacks not only to their head, but also the ones headed towards their body. Zippy was doing well so far, with only 15 more seconds to go. Just like last time, it sped up. In the last quarter, Zippy blocked the first 2 hits and lifted his hand to block an attack to the left of his face, and then another to his right. This was when the others started noticing something wrong. Although the machine strikes weren't all that powerful, if the attack wasn't properly blocked, it would still hurt. It was quite similar to someone giving a soft padded punch, especially since the bars themselves were covered. Yet for some reason, Zippy's hands were shaking. When the 3rd bar swung towards the right side of his rib, Zippy hesitated since he thought back to the words Zach said. His concentration broke, and it ruined his form. His movements became as erratic as he was nervous. This slip-in was more than enough. He was just a split second late in blocking the blow, heading towards his ribs. Beep, beep, beep. Game over. As he walked back to his team, he hung his head in shame. He didn't even bother making eye contact with Zach. Zach, too, didn't say anything to him. It was a stupid mistake someone at their level should never make. In his mind, Zippy wanted to blame Zach for placing too much pressure on him. However, he knew that his words would be pointless. Now it was time for Sam to go again. Just like previously, he dealt with the multiple bars coming towards him with ease. When the game started speeding up towards the end, his breathing was a little quicker, but it didn't matter. His pace was incredible, and it looked like he was playing some sort of rhythm game. Beep! Level 2 completed. Instead of heading back to the others, Sam remained in the game room. This was because of their agreement beforehand. After another member from the opposing side was eliminated, the other one would stay and go on to the next level. Like this, the other team would have a slight advantage. This was how the game worked. For example, Zippy lost for being hit in the ribs. By seeing this, Sam would be able to observe and dodge the same strike. Not that it would have helped much at this stage anyway. Level 3 begin. The machine started once again, and there seemed to be a big jump in difficulty from level 2 to level 3. All 6 of the sections were moving this time. Having just completed the last round, Sam was a little tired. However, he still managed to persevere by blocking each of the bars. When the last 15 seconds came, the machine's speed looked like it almost doubled. Left block, right block, knee raise, right block again, elbow down. Sam thought about every move, but this was his downfall. Before, since he had enough time to think about everything he was doing, it worked out for him. Now that the attacks were too fast, he forgot to breathe as he was too focused on thinking and blocking. And suddenly, he needed to gasp for air. When taking in a deep breath, a bar came swinging out and whacked him in the face. Game over. Sam looked disappointed in himself. He thought he would be able to help out the others more. And yet, he was only able to eliminate a single player from the other team. He realized that playing this time of the game on your own and as a team was a little different. When you were on your own, you could start the same level again while remembering the speed and attack patterns. You could easily get better and adjust to the game's level. It wasn't that Sam couldn't pass level 3, but he would have needed to play it a couple more times before being able to do so. With the team mode, they only had one chance. Each player only had a single life. I'm sorry, Sam said as he walked back to the others. Don't worry about it. I learned quite a bit from watching you, Quinn said, not taking his eyes off the machine. Sam felt like it was all over after realizing the difference between playing as a team and as a single player. He never imagined that they could win anymore. Instead, he started praying to the karma gods, hoping that their opponents would get what they deserve and somehow lose the match. Another student from Zach's team walked forward and started the game. While Sam was busy playing the game, this student had been practicing at the side while trying to match the machine's speed. Now that he had a good idea of what the attacks would be like, everything seemed to work out for him. After the minute had passed, the game was over, and they completed level 3. All right, who's going next on your team? Zach asked them with a sneer on his face. While clenching his hand like a fist like he was getting into a fight, Fex stepped forward. Ha-ha, time to show you how easy this little thing is. Before he could get into the game area, a hand appeared on his shoulder and pulled him back. Let me take this one, Quinn said. For Sam, Zach, and the other teams standing by the sidelines, it came as a surprise for them when they saw who was volunteering. The two people going at it this time were both level 1s. If this was an ordinary team, then Zach wouldn't have thought too much of it. After all, it made sense to allow the weaker one to go first. However, level 1s couldn't be considered weak. They were beyond that. From the beginning, the only two people that the group focused on were Vorden and Sam. They even thought that the other two would have forfeited after knocking them out. Playing against level 1s was just a waste of time. But still, it looked like Fex willingly stepped back, allowing Quinn to take the stage. Vorden, on the other hand, didn't bat an eyelid at the level 1 making his way into the arena. Sam felt that maybe they were letting everyone have a go at the thing, or perhaps allow Vorden more chances to see how the machine worked. Although their chances of winning were slim from the looks on their faces, they hadn't given up yet. Meanwhile, Zach was taken aback by the sudden situation. The very same student who emanated a huge amount of confidence before was still displaying that same amount of confidence right now. For some reason, he felt that it was natural that he tried his best in avoiding eye contact with Quinn. For a moment, he gave in to his urges and looked up. When his eyes met with Quinn's, he instinctively knew that this was a bad idea. A tingling sensation could be felt at the back of his brain. It was almost as if it was trying to burst out of its skull and run away. "What's wrong with you, Zach? Get it together!" Quinn entered the game zone and took a relaxed stance while in the circle. The others felt like it was all a show. They simply couldn't believe why he was extremely calm. "He'll be out in 10 seconds, one of them said. "Oh yeah, do you want to bet on it? I reckon 30 seconds for 10 credits, another replied. "He should be confident for a reason, right? I think 45, just before things start speeding up. Zach, do you want to get in on this bet?" Zach didn't respond to them. Truthfully, he didn't want to tell the others his answer. Something was telling him that Quinn would be able to clear the entire thing. The game began, and the other group was carefully watching the timer instead of Quinn himself. They were all hoping to cash in their winnings. Once the timer went past the 10-second mark, a moan could be heard since one of them lost the bet. The seconds continued to pass by as it eventually crossed the 30-second mark. "I can't believe it." The game entered the final 15 seconds. Now that all of their bets failed, they decided to look at Quinn. However, as they observed him, they found things to be quite odd. It still looked as if he was just casually standing in the same spot. The bars came swinging at him, and as one of them was about to hit him at the very last second, he would be able to block the attack with his arm. He would retract his limb and then repeat the same thing to the rest of the bars. Watching Quinn do this was painful for Sam's heart. It was as if someone was walking on a tightrope. Every single attack seemed to have been barely blocked at the last second. Sam watched at the very beginning of the round. Even when the machine moved at a slower pace, the attacks still looked as if they were just about to hit Quinn. Because of how things were going, he expected that Quinn would lose in the final 15 seconds. Beep! The sound of the game ending and the level being completed was heard. Sam's prediction was completely wrong. "Whoa, will you look at that? He did it! Well, good news, there's no way he's getting past the next one, right, Zach?" Once again, Zach didn't respond. What the others failed to realize was that Quinn wasn't even out of breath. He didn't have a single sweat on him. Although the game was only a minute long, with the unusual amount of intense concentration and fast movements, it was still similar to someone doing a sprint. The next participant from Zach's group entered. It was time for level 4 to begin. All 6 compartments started moving at a faster pace. Not only that, but the machine also seemed to be doing more double attacks. It was attacking 2 different places at once. Even though the student was doing well, everyone could tell he was barely hanging in there. When the machine entered the final quarter, the first strike struck his foot, knocking him out of the game. There were now 3 contenders left, including Zach on the other team. Like before, Quinn entered the game and started in a similar way he left things. It even seemed like he never left the game. Quinn continued blocking each strike just before it would hit him. He would lift his limbs to block and simply place them straight back down. The reading on his watch, it has to be fake. Or maybe he's some sort of martial art expert or something. No wonder he's so confident. He's going to complete this, isn't he? Zach's thoughts were screaming in his head. The timer continued going up and entered the final quarter like before. But suddenly, a strange feeling rushed through Quinn's head, and at the same time, an abrupt pain in his stomach. "Not now," he groaned out. 29 of 95 HP. It had been an hour since the last message had appeared. The shooting pains in his body could be felt. Instinctively, Quinn grabbed his head and leaned forward. This resulted in the bar striking him both on the head and stomach simultaneously, thus eliminating him from the game. Game over. Fex quickly rushed out to see if Quinn was okay. He realized what the problem might have been. "Hey, why don't you just rest? It must be tough going through what you're feeling right now. Just leave it to me. I can handle these guys." Upon seeing Quinn lose, it was a relief to Zach. He didn't know what just happened, but someone must have wanted him to win this game. It was clear that Quinn was going to pass it the same way he did on the previous one. "I knew he would eventually lose. It was only a matter of time," the others commented. They misinterpreted the situation and simply thought that the game was too much for Quinn to handle. With Quinn knocked out of the game, it was time for someone from Zach's team to enter again. This time, the person managed to clear the level 4 stage. "Well, who's next?" Zach asked. Fex stood up and took the mantle. This time, he felt someone tug on his sleeve. When he looked down, he noticed it was Quinn. "You're going to do it again, aren't you?" "One of us can go twice, remember?" Quinn said. "Fine," Fex responded as he sulked his way back to the rest of his team. After feeling like he suffered an unjust loss, he wanted to finish what he started. Since Zack and his group decided to target him and had even gone as far as trying to snatch his newly bought equipment, if anyone was going to show them their place, it was going to be Quinn. When they saw who was walking up to the stage, they all started to laugh. Everyone else apart from Zack, that was. "I forgot about that stupid rule. Why didn't we just make it 4 versus 4? He quietly complained in his mind, but things were too late now. This time, when the game started, Quinn chose to take on a fighting stance. It was the first time he had done so since he started playing the game. Before, he merely treated this game as a type of practice, trying to see how much he could block things before the very last second. Now that he had no second chances and the will to win rose in his heart, he chose to properly block everything. Even before the machine was able to move, Quinn could already hear the sound of each session activating. With the slightest movement from the contraption, Quinn placed his hand out. To the others, it almost looked like he was attacking the machine. Before the bars on each station had the chance to fully move, Quinn had already hit them. The machine would slightly nudge in certain sections, but it never had the chance to perform a full strike. If he was to hit one section of the machine before it even moved, then the game would have been declared a loss for the player. It was done like this so people would stop using this type of tactic. However, the game over sound never appeared. Instead, the beeping sound that indicated a completed stage resounded out. "Who the hell is this person?" Sam muttered out. At the same time, he also wished Nate was here to witness what he had just seen. Not even Nate would have been able to display something so great. "If you were here, Nate, I think you would have found a new person to be excited about." After witnessing such a display, Zack figured out something. If he wanted to win, then he needed to do something drastic. The whole group was silent after what they had just witnessed. Even Fex, who was the closest there in terms of skill and speed, felt like he would struggle at doing what Quinn had just done. "That's confirmed it. He was to be evolving to the next level, but how did it grow so fast, and right in front of my eyes?" Fex thought. It was strange, because Fex knew that Quinn wasn't in the Vampire Noble class. They just had a certain feeling about them. He was very close to breaking through to the next stage. However, Quinn was a little strange. Some of his skills, such as speed and strength, were already at the Vampire Noble level, but he could tell he hadn't evolved yet. Just how was this possible? This was all because of Quinn's unique situation of having the system while being a vampire. He grew stronger by consuming different types of blood. It allowed his stats to go beyond that of a regular vampire. "I'm going to speak to the admin. The machine has to be broken," someone from Zack's group said. The others were inclined to agree that this game was meant to be about blocking attacks, and it looked like Quinn was attacking the machine itself. "Looks like you're not so worried about revealing yourself then," Forden said. "It's not like I displayed any of my abilities. Besides, I doubt anyone would believe their story. Also, do you think they would go around telling people a level 1 user did all this to them?" Quinn replied. One of the students who was already knocked out from the game on Zack's side had gone to the game admin, who worked at the front, to see if the machine was broken. Zack knew it wasn't the case, but anything to stop this bet was a good thing in his eyes. Another person from Zack's team had started the game anyway. If it was broken, they could always just stop and move to a different booth. But as soon as the game started, it became clear that the machine wasn't broken and was working just fine. The students had expected the machine to be broken. The only way to complete the game like that was to hit the target as soon as he saw it moving to count it as a block. Due to him thinking this, he was slightly unprepared, and after just 10 seconds, the student was hit and out of the game. There were now only 2 people left on Zack's team. Quinn walked up to the game once again and started. Zack was looking at him closely, and so was Sam, hoping to see another amazing display of skills. This time there was no such thing, and Quinn just blocked the upcoming attacks from the machine normally. There was a little bit of disappointment from both sides, as the game had ended normally. Quinn was frustrated after what had occurred last time, and to calm himself down he wanted to perform at his peak. After calming down a little, there was no need, so he decided to play the game like normal. The others soon realized once again how impressive this was. The game was set at level 5, yet when Quinn was blocking the attacks, he made them feel like they were watching a game at level 1. He blocked them all so easily. Now that Quinn had passed level 5 on the machine, the 2 remaining students had to pass it as well. Otherwise, they would lose the game. Zack's last teammate walked into the gaming area that had begun. Before, their team was full of confidence, always being the one in the lead, But now they had the added pressure that if they were to lose, then it meant they would lose the game. They were the current underdogs. How the hell did these level 1s put us in this situation? The student thought angrily as he was whacked in both the leg and head and was out of the game. The only one left now was Zach. He clenched his fist and walked up to the gaming area. This was another reason why he had chosen this game, simply because he had played it multiple times before and felt like he was better than the average person. When playing on level 5 previously, there was always a 50-50 chance that he would pass it on his first go. The game had begun, and Zach was fully concentrating on the targets coming towards him. He blocked the attacks with commitment, meeting them before they would fully reach their destination slightly. This meant he was getting hurt by the bars slightly, but he didn't care about that right now. Not hesitating as he blocked every single attack, the sound of the game over was heard to him. "Level 5 passed." The cheering soon stopped, and the smile on Zach's face started to disappear as they saw Quinn confidently walk to the stage once again. They all no longer saw Quinn as the weak level 1, but instead as a monster at the game. Zach wasn't a religious man, but he started to pray to an unknown force, hoping that something would happen. He knew he only had a 10% chance of passing level 6 himself. If they were both to fail, then the game would be declared a draw, and they could both walk out of this pretending nothing ever happened. "Level 6 start." Whack, whack, whack. The sound of the machine hitting against Quinn's body was constantly being heard as he continued to block each shot. While doing so, Quinn was starting to have a bit of fun, imagining multiple enemies trying to attack him. The game was good to practice one's reflexes, but was useless for learning any skill. There weren't many opponents whose attack patterns would be as simple as this, and it also didn't allow for one to practice attacking, using their skills. Still, Quinn was having a lot of fun, and finally was starting to have a bit of sweat on him. As the timer had reached 45 seconds, the smile on his face grew bigger. Seeing this, Zach already had his answer. Quinn was going to finish level 6, and perhaps could even go beyond. If he wanted to do something, he needed to do it now. Keeping his hand down by his side next to his waist, he opened up his palm and faced it towards the machine. He started to do a type of pulling motion, and suddenly the top section of the machine looked almost still. Inside the machine, the mechanism was being widened up as it was held back by a strange force. Zach had the power of magnetism and was holding back a part of the machine. Then, using all his strength, he released as well as pushing forward, causing the top section to swing out at a great speed. What he didn't expect was the force to be too much, the added power of being held back. With a push of full force, it had reached level 6 speed already, and it caused the top part to fling off. A loud crack was heard as the object disconnected from the machine and flew in the air. "What the—" Quinn managed to move out of the way, but at the same time had stepped out of the circle, causing the game over screen to appear. But that wasn't a concern right now, for the flying object was heading straight for Sam. Both Vorden and Fex had predicted something like this would happen after noticing something strange and had already moved out of the way, but for Sam, it wasn't the same. He was too fascinated and focused on Quinn's performance. From where Quinn was, he wouldn't reach Sam in time, so there was only one thing he could do. Flash step! In an instant, Sam could see a strange style of footwork, causing Quinn to look like he almost instantly teleported from one place to another. Still, Quinn was a little far away, swinging out from his hip. He performed a roundhouse kick and knocked the flying object off to the side. It hit the wall and smashed into tiny pieces away from the others. Thankfully, no one was hurt. "Thank you," Sam said. While saying these words, he looked at Quinn deeply, because in that brief moment he realized something. Both of those moves Quinn had displayed, he felt like he had seen them before. The kick was one of normal Earth martial arts. However, it was performed so clean and fast. But the main thing that he was shocked about was the flash steps. He had seen only one person ever perform it before. The flash step was performed by the player known as Bloody Volver. It couldn't be him, could it? Rather than being shocked about nearly being hit by a flying metal object, Sam was far more concerned about the skill he had just witnessed in front of him, the move that he and Nate referred to as the flash step. This was because whenever they saw the move being used, it did seem like the user would suddenly flash into a different spot. More importantly, it was a move that Sam had only seen one person ever perform, the person known as Bloody Volver from the game. However, just because they had only seen one person perform it, didn't mean only one person knew how to. A teacher most likely needed to teach the person the move, and they most likely taught others. One could come up with a skill themselves, but knowing the information about the Blood Evolver they did know, that seemed unlikely. They knew two things about the Blood Evolver. One was that he was from a military school since they had met on the military gaming servers. The second was that the person was a first-year student. Even if Nate was convinced that this, Larry Steele person was the Blood Evolver, the only evidence he was going on was the fact that he had met these conditions as well as used gauntlets as weapons. Still, Sam didn't have much more evidence himself that the person in front of him was the real Blood Evolver. The only way to find that out was to see the person using their ability. The strange red aura, a powerful, unique ability that had been used to defeat many opponents in the game, including himself. That's why Sam wasn't adamant that Quinn was the Blood Evolver. On his wristwatch, it displayed that he was a level 1 user. There was no way such an ability would be deemed so weak. Then another thought had come to him. The red aura ability was something that shouldn't have been in the game. It was an ability that was unable to be selected in the servers. Yet it could still be used for some reason, and the game devs even confirmed it wasn't a hack. Although many didn't believe this, thinking the game devs were just trying to save face. But what if it was true? Maybe this ability was slightly different from how people knew and measured current abilities. If that was the case, then the watches the military used wouldn't be able to register anything. Sam looked at Quinn once more. He wished he could confirm it right now, but he couldn't. Inside the VR game, players created avatars to be used. So from looks alone, there was no way for Sam to tell that this was the same person, and the same could be said for Quinn. So the two were unable to recognize each other. Sam stood there dazed, thinking about these thoughts. "Hey, are you all right, man?" Fex asked. "I know that thing nearly hit you, but you didn't get hurt, right?" Snapping out of his thoughts, Sam replied, "Yeah, I'm fine. I was just shocked, as you said, that's all." A little before the incident had occurred, one of Zach's team members had gone to the admin room to have a look at Quinn's last match, to see if there was an error in the game. When he had arrived, he had asked the admin to check. They pulled up the previous match on video, and both the admin and the student observed the whole 1-minute video. "So the game was broken, right? It didn't count any of the strikes made to the machine?" the student asked. At first, the admin just sat there and remained silent. The student thought he might have been doing some extra checks in the game, but instead, he was looking at it, amazed. In all of his years working, he had watched countless students play the game, but it was the first time he had seen someone do something like this. "He's amazing," the man said. "This game wasn't broken at all. He managed to hit every section, the second they started to move." The question wasn't whether this was possible or not. There were plenty of people who would be fast enough to do something like this. The real problem the man was struggling with was how. If one was to know the exact pattern of attacks and had it memorized, they could do something like this, but the game was random and didn't always perform the same set of actions. Somehow the student was able to see what was about to move before it moved. The man played the video again, and while doing so, a loud crash was heard outside of the room. It was the sound of Quinn kicking the top of the compartment of the machine into the wall. The two of them left immediately to have a look at what was going on outside. The game wasn't quite over yet, at least not in the mind of Quinn and his group. Because Quinn, Vorden, and Fex weren't exactly stupid, they knew something must have happened. The whole machine was acting strangely, and only when it was Quinn's turn, and in its final moments, something happened to the machine. Using his inspection skill on Zach once again, he confirmed that he had a magnetic skill. He must have tampered with the game. "Well, it looks like the machine broke. Good thing no one got hurt, huh? Why don't we just call this one a draw? You keep your armor there, and I'll keep my crystal. It was a fun little game, wasn't it?" When saying these words, Zach's heart was beating faster, and looking at those in front of him, it started beating even more quickly. Not only was Quinn giving him strange stares, but the other two boys next to him were as well. The look in their eyes was no less frightening than Quinn's. "What's wrong with these guys?" Vorden wanted to say something and prepared himself a speech while the others were playing, but when he saw Quinn stepping forward, he realized there was no need for him to say anything. "First, you try to take my armor from me forcefully. Let me guess it's because you saw we were low levels, right?" Quinn said, lifting and revealing the number on his wristwatch. "Then, you try to pretend to make things fair by playing a game that none of us have ever played before, and when you see we were about to win, you tamper and cheat at the game?" "Cheat?" Zack replied nervously, taking a step back. The others, with Zack, knew that the person in front of them was impressive when it came to hand-to-hand combat, but found it strange why Zack was so scared. After all, he was only a level 1 ability user. If the two of them were to get into a fight, Zack should be able to wipe the floor with him, they thought. Seeing Zack take another step back angered Quinn even more. He didn't know if it was a game or the fact that he had been starving himself for the last 2 days and a half, but he was getting extremely agitated by the whole thing, more so than he would have done. He was ready to snap. "Stand still!" Quinn shouted in an aggressive voice. For some reason, Zack's body seemed to no longer be in control. He tried his best to move the muscles in his legs. He screamed at his brain, demanding to move his legs to get away from this person. But nothing was working. He was frozen in place. Quinn didn't realize what he had just done, that he had activated the influence skill on its own without using his system, something he had never achieved before. Zack could do nothing as he watched the glowing red eyes of the student in front of him. The others were a little too far to see what was genuinely happening. They stood outside the booth and were watching from both sides. One side with Quinn's group on the left, and the other side with Zack's group. Each of their teams stood behind their teammates, which meant Quinn had his back facing against Vex. So even with his excellent eyesight, he didn't know what was going on and was unable to see that the influence skill was currently active. Quinn had never even thought about using the influence skill to get rid of this whole matter. Zack, being a level 6 ability user, usually meant one would have a strong mind and willpower. This wasn't always the case, but more so than not. In the past, something like this would have never worked. However, 2 things had changed since the last time. The first is that Quinn had increased his charm points quite a bit. The second was due to the pressure and frightening things that had happened so far. Zack's mind was very unstable. He didn't quite know what was going on, and because of this, the influence skill had a great effect. "You're going to leave that crystal behind and leave this place," Quinn ordered. At that moment, Zack obediently followed, pulling the intermediate crystal from his pouch and placing it on the floor. Soon after, he already left, and the others followed. "Well, that went a lot smoother than I thought it would," Vex said. After picking up the crystal and placing it in his pocket, his mood had calmed down, and his eye color had returned to normal. "Well, that was fun, wasn't it?" he said, facing the others. Seeing this, Vorden felt like Quinn was acting a little bipolar. Just moments ago, his voice sounded like he would snap Zack's head apart, but now he seemed to be over the moon. However, Vorden didn't say anything, as he wasn't the one to talk about a person having mood swings. Just then, the admin man had entered the room. The other student had left to join the others when he saw Zack and them going. "What happened?" the man said with his hands held above his head. The top part of the machine was smashed to bits. It was beyond repair. A whole new machine would need to be ordered. "We should have told those guys to stay behind," said Vex. "Now we're going to get the blame and have to pay for this." The man was about to tear them a new one. He told the kids how they should respect the property that wasn't owned by them, but when seeing the large number in the room, indicating which booth this was, he quickly realized it was the same one from the video. "Did you do this?" the man asked, looking at Quinn. The video that was shown was from the top right. In the video, one was unable to see the face, but could see all the actions performed. The only thing that could be seen as the black curly hair. "Yes, it was me," Quinn replied. "No, you idiot! Why do you have to be so honest? Just say it was the others who ran away," Vex said. "They have the incident on video anyway," Sam said. "On the video there will be no proof that the others did anything, and would just show Quinn kicking the top part, so it's best not to lie." The students stood there worried for Quinn. The man was quite large, and they were afraid of the consequences they might have to face. "If you need to, I can pay for the machine," Vorden offered. "I can chip in as well," Vex added. "Me too," Sam replied, feeling a little awkward if he didn't offer as well after everyone else had done. But he wasn't rich like the others, and didn't want them to take him up on his offer. The man looked at Quinn. If he was the one in the video, it was expected that something like this might have happened. "You have good friends. Accidents like this can happen. Don't worry about it, and don't let it happen again," the man said. They were shocked at the response, but decided to try to leave as soon as possible and not argue back with the results. There was a good chance that the man might change his mind, so they quickly decided to leave the place. "Make sure I don't see you here again," the man shouted at them with a smile. The 4 boys were back out at the platform, and the night sky was now fully out. The stairs could be seen above them, and they looked beautiful. Most of the students who were on the platform before had already headed back to their hotel to get some sleep. Although there was no curfew, students were expected to watch the matches that started early in the morning. The group continued to walk in a circle on the platform and reached Sam's hotel. Before parting ways, Sam wanted to get as much information out of Quinn as possible. "You were skillful back there. I can't believe what you did. You know, I feel slightly embarrassed now that I offered to help you when you didn't need it," Sam said, laughing. "Don't worry about it," Quinn said. "You offered to help even though you didn't know us. In this world, there aren't many who would do that." "If you don't mind me asking, how did you do that with the machine earlier? How can you move so fast? Is it something to do with your ability?" Sam asked. Quinn thought a bit about what to say before answering, but he knew he couldn't take too long, otherwise Sam would get suspicious. Still, he didn't see Sam as a bad person, but still couldn't tell him the truth. "I don't have an ability. That's why it shows I'm a level 1. Because of this, my parents trained me on how to fight since I was young. I focused just on using martial arts. I thought if I got good enough and got some decent beast gear, then maybe I can still make it in this world," Quinn explained. "He's getting better at lying. I don't know if that's a good thing, though," Vorden thought. With that, the group continued to talk for a bit before parting ways. Sam headed back to his hotel room, while the others continued to walk to their hotel. "Saying one has no ability is a good way to hide your actual ability. It's a shame you won't be participating in this tournament, Quinn. It would have been able to see you up against Nate," Sam thought. Although he couldn't confirm Quinn was the Blood Evolver, he didn't need to. The main thing was that Sam felt like he had got on well with Quinn. If he were the Blood Evolver, it would only make things more interesting. There was no rush on his end. There was still a week left to try to find out the truth. Back at the gaming area, the admin who had let Quinn and his group go was in the camera room. He had finished cleaning up the bits and pieces and had closed off the booth to be used by the public. Inside the room, he watched Quinn's video fighting against the level 4 machine again. Every time he watched, he got excited. He also further watched what had happened after the events, seeing that Quinn had saved his fellow teammate and kicked the machine out of harm's way. "I was right to not blame them for what happened," he thought. Still, there was another reason why the man had let them go without paying for anything. The video had been cut down, only showing Quinn's actions during the level 4 game. Then, once the video file was downloaded, the man went into one of the students' internal video sharing platforms and clicked Upload. A bar started to fill the screen, and the number eventually reached 100%. "This video doesn't deserve only to be seen by me," the man said. Soon, all the students in the military base would see Quinn's amazing feat. Arriving at the arena, Silver felt better than she had done in a while. It had been a long month at the Academy military base. She wished to return home, but would never do so until she had completed her task. Now that it felt like she was drawing close, her mood was starting to change. As she left the hotel room to head outside, she passed many of the students she had taught. "I hope you have a good day, miss." "Stay safe." "I wish I look as pretty as her when I grow up." The students couldn't help but praise Miss Silver. Although she had been strict in class, her lessons were quite knowledgeable. Her lessons were also enjoyable, as it seemed like when Silver taught, she had no filter. When speaking, she would never sugarcoat her words like the other teachers. In the middle of her class, the boys would often compliment her or ask her about certain subjects. When replying, she would do so bluntly, embarrassing them and speaking what was on her mind. As days went on, the students started to learn what Silver was like, and realized she meant no harm from her words. At first, she found the compliments annoying, but over time, she grew to enjoy the words. "When I go back, will Father praise me for doing a good job?" she thought. Everything she had done so far was for the family, and she would continue to do so. Yet not even once had her father, the family leader, praised her, unlike here where she heard kind words every day. Before she knew it, she had already left the arena and was just outside on the ground floor. It was a habit for her to want to be alone whenever she got upset. Usually, a few moments later, and her idiot of a brother, Fex, would come and cheer her up. After she had calmed down, she planned to head back into the arena and search around on the top floor to see if she could find any information or maybe even spot Fex. The quicker she brought him home, the less time she would have to spend here. However, a strange, sweet smell had reached her nose, one she was familiar with, but hadn't smelt in a long time. The smell of blood. Wondering why she would smell the scent of human blood outside, she quickly rushed over to the scene. Eventually the trail of blood led her to a bald man, with a sword by his side. When she saw that no one was hurt, she slowed down her stride and started to walk. The smell was still coming from the direction of the man, and that's when her eyes were glued onto a particular object he held in his hand. It was a metallic flask, but not just any flask. A flask that bore the symbol of the Sanguinist family. Knowing that Fex was at one of the academies, her mind instantly thought the flask belonged to him. The question was, why was this man holding on to Fex's flask that was filled with blood? From his scent alone, she could tell he wasn't a vampire. "Where did you get that flask?" Silver asked. Leo tried to see if he could recognize the voice, but it was not one he knew. He was quite new to the military, so he still hadn't memorized all of the other generals and sergeants' aura or voices either. But if one was able to get into this facility, he had to assume they were a member of staff. Yet, the first question she asked when meeting him was about the flask. Judging by the tone of her voice, she had to be either someone of equal rank or someone above. No student would dare talk to a sergeant like this. "Who are you?" Leo asked. "State your name and rank." Although Leo had spoken, the words didn't process through Silver's mind. She was too concerned with her question. Fex would have never let something so precious fall into the hands of another unless something serious had happened. Did the humans find out about him and kill him? Regardless, the flask was an important piece of equipment that could link the humans to them. She needed to get rid of it. Flicking out one of her fingers, a small piece of string shot out straight, aiming for the flask in Leo's hand. Not wanting to cause a scene, she would take the flask and try to find out more later. The piece of string was so thin, and it was dark outside, making it practically invisible. But before the string could even reach the flask, a slicing sound was heard, and then a short click followed after. The piece of string then fell onto the floor. When looking at Leo, she could see the flask had now been put away into his side pouch, while his hand was on the hilt of his sword. "You cut the string, but how did you see it?" she asked, shocked by what had just happened. But Silver wasn't the only one shocked. He was surprised that the girl was also able to see him move his sword so fast. "I didn't," Leo replied as he pointed to his eyes with his other hand. "Can't you tell? I'm blind." Leo expected at least a chuckle from Silver. Usually, these types of words would at least give him a response. Instead, Silver stood there still like a statue. Not even her expression had changed. When checking out her aura, there wasn't even a little flicker, and still, her aura seemed to be masked. "If you're blind, then I don't have to worry about you seeing my face," she said as she dashed forward. Withdrawing his sword from his sheath, a large pressurized air slice came out from the sword. Sensing the strong power that was just unleashed, Silver knew she needed to do something about it. One moment she was directly in front of Leo, the next she was behind him. Silver struck towards his chest, thinking the whole thing would be over, but as if Leo had eyes on the back of his head, he was able to dodge by ducking down. He then pivoted his foot, spinning his body around while throwing out his blade towards the middle of her body. This time the attack was too fast for her to move. Instead, at just the right time, she opened up her palms and slapped at the sword from the bottom and the top. Using all her strength, she was able to stop the sword just in time. The sword was held in her hands, just a few inches away from her body. From the outside, it looked like neither one of them was moving an inch. But the truth was, they were both using their full strength, but the power was equal, not allowed the other one to budge. "Is this her natural strength?" Leo thought. "I've even activated the beast armor underneath my clothing, and still I can't overpower her." From Leo's ability, he was able to tell if his opponent had high-level beast gear that was currently activated to enhance the user's strength. There was a possibility that the opponent he was fighting against was able to mask their equipment as well, but it was unlikely. The stalemate continued for a while, but both knew this was useless. "Your voice sounds pretty. If it sounded as good as you looked, I might let you win this one," Leo said, hoping to break her concentration for just a second. However, it didn't seem to work. Instead, her eyebrows and face started to scrunch up. She started to concentrate even more, and the top of her forehead started to sweat a little. Silver hadn't run out of options. She still had her many vampire abilities. The problem was quite a few of them required her to look into her opponent's eyes, and that didn't quite work well against Leo. Other than that, the blood abilities would be a dead giveaway and would leave behind a trace. Instead, she chose to push her body even further, ever so slightly. With one of her hands, she carefully positioned her fingers now, so it was held both on top and under the blade. Then, slowly with her other, she let go. Now, Silver was holding back Leo with a single hand, but she knew she couldn't do this for long. With her other hand free, quickly she started to twirl her fingers, and multiple strings started to shout out. The target wasn't Leo himself, but instead they were heading for his pouch. The first set of strings lifted it open, while the next grabbed onto the flask. After slightly moving her finger like a web, she was able to draw it into her hand. "Don't make me come back to kill you," she said, as she quickly fled the scene at an amazing speed. Leo prepared himself to perform another quick set of slashes. If he threw out multiple strikes now, there was a chance one of them could hit her and slow her down. Midway through his attack, though, he stopped himself. "She couldn't have come all this way just for that. It seems whoever owned that item is quite important." From the location of where the flask was found and the story of the other students, he could tell that the flask most likely belonged to one of them. He had planned to return it at one point, but not until he found out the flask's use. He never did in the end, but now he felt like he had a more interesting tale to follow. While running back to her room, Silver looked at her hand and could see a cut. "That human hurt me."
Hi, Quinn here. Wondering what happens next? If you want to jump the queue and unleash all episodes, click on the link here and install the Pocket FM app.